Yeah. So in today class, we are going to learn basically base object properties and all, like the theory part we are going to cover in today class. So let me go to the MDM Hub console, and here in a schema we can see all the tables and merge the things. So here we will have some properties. So we will try to cover those properties one by one, because that property will be helpful for our project also, and also for interview questions and answers. So these are very important. So suppose we are going to base subject, and then here we are starting the things. So here in base subject, this we know display name something like which will show here, and physical name, this one actually, this object name will be stored in the database in backend. Okay, this data table space and index table space will be created at the time of installation for holding the data information and index information. And this table type, like what kind of table this is. So this is base object table. This is created date of the object. And here the this already we saw in the previous kind of classes. So this one basically is for enable history. So if we are clicking on this, so history of the base object will be enabled. Okay, and here we have timeline option. So for this timeline, let me open one theoretical page. So here I have given one link. So that link we can use. I will upload that link also. This link is from Informatica website. So timeline basically specifies where timeline is enabled for base subject. The default is no timeline. Select dynamic timeline to enable timeline. If timeline is enabled, the MDM will manage version of the base subject. I'm not sure that you guys are able to see my screen. This one. Are you able to see this Informatica document?
No.
No. Okay. So okay, that's fine. So I will share that document after the class. So here basically timeline means if you want to maintain the version, if timeline is enabled, the MDM Hub manages versions of the base object. Then what will happen here? If by default it will be no timeline. No timeline means there will not be any version of the base object. Okay. But if you are enabling this dynamic timeline, then what will happen? This timeline requires a state management and history to be enabled. So this state management we are going to see just now, and history we just now saw. So what it is saying, that if we enable this timeline option, then it will be able to manage the version of the base object. Version we know, right? If we do any code change, then it creates the different version, right, of the code, which we deploy in the higher environment, right? So if you want to track back the previous version, we can easily restore, or either we can track back, right? So the same thing we can do here also. If we are allowing this, then it will automatically create the version of the base object. But in real time, we don't use that. This one allow non-continuous effective period. So this one basically uses non-continuous effective period for records. Enable to specify non-continuous effective period for records. Disable to use content. This one actually I never use in my project. I'm not sure about this option. Okay, so this by default it will always be disabled. So we have not checked this option in our project. So I'm not sure about this option. Maybe you guys can do Google and you can find more details. So here actually we have many things. Now we are going in advanced part day by day. So we will see that we will have many of the things. So it's not possible for us to cover all the things, like in API. If you will go, there will be 100 of API. Okay, so we cannot cover all the API, because we can cover and focus on those objects which frequently being used in our project. Okay, and real time, which will be more helpful for real time project work and for interview question answers. So we will try to focus on those things in more details. Here in advanced part, here these all things are very important. So this is complete tokenization ratio. What is the meaning of this? So you can see the detail of this. If you put your mouse now, then automatically it will show the description. So what it is saying, when the percentage of the record that have changed in the higher than the value. Suppose here we have given 60. So this is 60 is basically a percentage. Okay. So if incoming delta record is higher than this 60%, 60% means the record which is already tokenized. That means the record which is already there in base subject for a match and merge. So the record which is tokenized, suppose 100. So suppose first time we had 100 record which got tokenized. So what this is saying, if the in second load, if you are getting more than 60 record, means 60% means out of 100 more than 60 record, then what it will do, it will re-tokenize the existing record also. So suppose in first load we had 100 record in base subject, and that time it did tokenization and also already we will have tokens in strp table, right? But suppose in second run we got suppose 70 record as a part of delta. So what will happen in second run, it will again re-tokenize all the record which is already there in the strp table. The regeneration of tokens will happen. The meaning of this property is that. And if the incoming value is less than 60%, suppose we are getting 40 record only in delta, then what it will happen, it will not re-tokenize the existing data. It will delete the existing data. First it will tokenize the delta data only, and then it will reinsert the existing data. That means it will not re-tokenize the existing data. That's property meaning is that. I will give the document for this all the things so that you guys can go through with that. This one, allow constraint to be disabled. So as we know that these constraints is more helpful after the first load. So in initial load, we don't allow more kind of constraints which will impact our performance. So once we do two kind of load in our actual project. Once we do deploy our project for first time in production, then we do initial load, right? So in initial load, we do kind of 1-to-1 load. Okay, there we don't allow constraints or relationship, because that will unnecessarily impact the performance, and for first time we will not have much data which needs to be compared. That means all data will be kind of straightforward. It will insert, it will not update, right? So we will try to minimize the number of constraints for the initial load. For the delta load, yes, we can have all the constraints which is required. And if the constraints are not required, we will try to minimize the number of constraints which will impact the performance. This one is load batch size. So this one is a 1 million by default. So as we know that this in every batch there is a cycle, like in one batch it will process this much record, in other batch it will process this much record. So if you are running the load job, and suppose we have 5 million record here, so what it will do, first it will process 1 million in one cycle, then in other cycle it will take 1 million, like that. So same thing happens in the ETL processing also, right? That batch, once we run the job, then processing happens on the batches, like some part of the record will be processed, then the other part, and likewise, right? So here we have the same thing. If you want, you can increase that. If you want, you can decrease that as per our choice, but the standard value is 1 million. So here whatever we can see, these all are a standard value because we have not changed, I think, any of the parameters. So this we can take as a standard, but yes, if required, we can change this value as per our requirement. This one saying max elapsed match minutes. That means if we are running match rule in minutes, so what it will do, it will wait for 20 minutes to complete the match job. If the match job is going to take more than 20 minutes, then it will terminate that job. Okay. And if we have suppose connected many jobs in series, then what will happen, that job will terminate and next job will automatically start. Okay. So in the real case, in delta load, we will see that job will complete in less than 20 minutes. So that time is more than sufficient. But in some cases, if you want, you can adjust, you can lower it or we can increase it. Okay. So this is basically a kind of one indicator for the match job. So if match job will take extra time, then it will terminate on the basis of these settings. This is parallel degree. So parallel degree, we know, like in ETL or in SQL procedures also, this parallel kind of processing happens. So by default, one means it will create a one thread for the parallel processing. So for this parallel degree, we have to make sure that our hardware and other configurations are proper. Then we can only go for the multiple thread. Okay. Otherwise, one thread will be enough for processing. If we are trying to give the multiple value, then of course the chances of processing will be faster. That means the processing will be faster because it will create the multi-thread. But we have to make sure that we have enough hardware who can accommodate this kind of multi-thread requirement. Okay. This one, Requeue on parent merge. So this basically, the name is saying Requeue on parent merge. So what it is saying, if suppose parent has merged, okay, if suppose there is an employee table and there is an address table. So if a parent merge, if there is some merging happen between the parents, then what should happen to child? So if this is saying in description, if set the related child records are set as unconsolidated when the parents are merged. So in this option, what will happen if we are enabling this? Like here we have three options. Okay. So if let me open the document for this, I will share this document with you guys. So this one basically Requeue and parent merge. Okay. So Requeue and parent merge is if we are taking none value here, then means if the value is set none for children object, in the event of merging parent, the consolidation indicator of the child record does not change. Okay. So if we are taking this none value, then what will happen? If parent will merge, then there will not be any impact in child in case of none. Okay. That means both will behave differently. But suppose if you are taking unconsolidated, then what will happen? If the value is set to unconsolidated only for a child-based object, in the event of merging parent, the consolidation indicator of child record change to 4. Okay. So if parent will merge, that like if the merging will happen between employee records, then what will happen? Automatically the child record, the corresponding address record, consolidation indicator will be changed to 4 so that it can merge with other records. Why it is happening? So this is understanding in this case that if parent is merging, that means we have received some additional record of parent. Okay. So we expect that we have received few additional record of that child also, the corresponding parent child also. Okay. So this option is saying, let's if our parent is merging, then let's disassociate, let's unconsolidate our child also. Let's make the consolidation indicator 4 so that the respective child can also merge with the incoming parent child, means incoming child. Okay. So that's why this option is helpful in that case if you have such requirement, unconsolidated only. And in case of all, if the value is set to all for a child-based object, in the event of, so this all settings we will do on the child, not on a parent. Okay. So this all settings, Requeue and parent merge, whatever we are discussing, this all will be done on the child, not on the parent. So if the value is set to all for a child-based object, in the event of merging parent, the consolidation indicator of all child records, including those with consolidation indicator of 1, changes to 4, so they can be matched again. Okay. So there is a slight difference between this unconsolidated and all. In unconsolidated, like suppose record which have the consolidation indicator 2 or 3. Okay. So after merging of the parent, that all will be converted to 4. That means consolidation has not happened, the second option. But third option, what it is saying, all the record, irrespective of consolidation indicator 2 or 3, if consolidation indicator 1 is also there for some child record, then that will also convert to 4. So here all record will convert to 4 consolidation indicator. That means all record are now ready for finding the new match candidate. So these are the 3 different options we have. Then generate match tokens on load. Okay. So what this option is saying, that in our previous classes we saw that we used to generate the match tokens after running the generate match token job separately, right? And then we used to run the merge and all. So what this option is saying, if you don't want to run the token job separately every time, then you can enable this option. And with the help of this option, what will happen? If you will run the load job, then same time in backend, that generate match tokens will trigger and it will generate the tokens. Okay. So with the help of this option, we are combining the 2 jobs. Okay. So once we will run the load job, that means once we will get the data from a stage table to base object table, then what will happen after completion of the load job, automatically that generate match tokens job will trigger and it will also complete. So basically it will combine the 2 jobs if you are enabling this option. Else for learning, better to run it separately so that we can understand the impact in the respective table like strp tables and all. Okay. This one, match flag audit table. This one saying match flag audit table. So actually if we are enabling this, then there will be a separate table created that is called FMHA. Okay. So this table name will be base object underscore FMHA. That as we know that for matching we will have empty ch table underscore empty ch table, right? But if you are enabling this, then there will be additional table created just to have the extra information about our what we say match flag. Okay, so what this detail is saying, this flag controls whether the audit table is created for the match flags. So what is this match flag? Match flag, that means we get some what we say row id object and row id object match. These two column we have in empty ch, right? Like we can see here. So let me open some empty ch table. Here we can see address. This is empty. Okay, this is empty ch data. Okay, here we don't have any data. So let's take this one. Here also we don't have data. Okay, here we have some data. So here we have row id object and row id object match. Okay, so from here, if we are getting few data in empty ch table, then our flag will be set to 1. That means we have some data. Okay, if we don't have any data here, that means we don't have any kind of matching candidate. So what this option is saying, match flag audit table. So if you are enabling this, then there will be a separate table that is called FMHA will be created, and that table will basically hold the information like do we have any matching candidate in empty ch table or not. So that will just give the detail about that. So these all options are a standard, that means these are disabled, so these are not required, mandatory. Okay, this one is API lock wait interval. So this one we will see later also when we will learn the Java API. So this is saying that if you are firing any kind of API request like a get or push, get or put, you know that we will have a get request, means if you are reading something, then we send the get request, right? And if you are updating something, then we send the put request, right, in API. So this is saying that the API which is coming for retrieving information, that will only wait for 30 seconds. If it will not find any response in 30 seconds, then it will terminate automatically. It will stop automatically. So the lock wait time interval is 30 seconds. It will hold lock on some base object, like on this base object for 30 seconds. And if it will not be able to do processing or not get response, then it will terminate. So this we can this kind of option we can means set on respective base object. So this option is not generic. This option we can set on respective base object. Okay. So this is basically for API call. This is batch lock wait time interval. So what option? This one option is saying, this also in second. So this option is saying that if you are running any batch on this table, so this batch will only run for this much time, max of this much time. If it will take more than that, then automatically it will terminate. Okay. So these options basically we are giving to improve our performance, because what will happen in the real time, we will not run one job at a time, right? We will have 100 of jobs which will be connected in a series and in parallel as per the requirement. And if some job is taking, suppose it is supposed to take less than 10 minutes, but due to some deadlock or due to some error, it is taking suppose 2 hours. So all the upcoming jobs will be on hold till that is not processed, right? So for overcoming that, what we are doing, we are just trying to give some deadline of time for the respective jobs and respective tables, so that we can avoid the blockings. Okay, so that job will fail, and the remaining jobs which are waiting for this job, that can at least process. So it depends, like if the jobs which are waiting, that is dependent on this job, that means data is dependent on this job, then of course that cannot process. We will have to set a dependency. But if the further jobs are not dependent on this job, then it can trigger after the failure of this. Okay, so that configuration we have to do while consolidating all the job at one place. This one, see, this one is very important, enable a state management. Okay, so this one is basically enable a state management is for you remember we had learned the hub state indicator in base object. Okay, so you can take any base object like this. So here we will have one column that is called hub state indicator. Okay, so if you are not enabling this, now if you are not doing anything if, by default, then you will see that for all the record, it will take value 1. Okay, by default, that means all record are active. But we know that hub state indicator can have the 3 value, right? 1 means active, here we can see it is already saying how about state management. Here it is saying, so 1 means active, 0 means pending, and -1 means deleted. Okay, so where this hub management value will actually come in picture in real time. So once we will learn the active VOS, our entity 360 or provisioning, then from there we will see that we will have some user interface. Okay, and on the basis of that user interface, we can soft delete the record if that record is no longer required, or if some record is in pending status, then we can enable we can promote that record from pending to active. Okay, or if some record is active, we can depromote to from active to pending, or soft delete. So these all what we say changes will happen from the entity 360. We will see that later. Even that same thing we can do from Java API also, or if you want, you can do the same thing from backend also. You can update from here also. Okay, but in real time, the actual use of this happens from the provisioning tool. Okay, earlier it was called IDD. So from there we will see this option, enable state management. This option enable history of the cross reference promotion. Enable history of cross reference promotion. So this option is saying that just a minute. When enable this cause history information to be created and stored in HXPR table. So here one extra table will be created for a cross reference history. So we know that once we will enable the history for base object, then underscore hist table will be created for base object. Like here, one hist table will be created for base object. And apart from that, if you are enabling this option, then there will be a more table created that is called, see the name is HXPR. So basically that will again keep the history of cross reference. Okay. So when we will enable the history, then history of base object table will be created, history of cross reference will be created. And if you are enabling this, then what it will do, it will again create one additional table, HXPR table, for this base object each time, and XREF. So what will happen if there will be any change in XREF table while doing some promotion, then that change will be maintained as a history in this particular table. So in real time project, suppose we have 20 columns. Later we want to add 5 more columns, right? So if what additional changes we are doing on the cross reference table, so that structural change will be stored here if you are enabling this. So we can see, like in previous version, it was 20 table, so 20 columns. After doing the promotion of the cross reference, it will become the kind of 25 columns. Those are all details we can see. This one is base object style. Okay, so here we have two type of style, that is called merge style and link style. By default, we use the merge style. So in merge style, like whatever things we have done till now for matching and merging, that is called merge style. In merge style, what happens? Record will physically match. Okay, two record will physically match and merge. So if two record will merge, then it will become one. Okay, it will become one. So we cannot see two record. But in link style, what will happen? All things happen virtually. Okay, so here in the base object, the things will not happen physically, but it will happen virtually. So it will just create the virtual reference of the two records after the merging. So record will still be 2 in the base object, but it will create a reference. Through that reference, you can understand that these two record has been merged. It is same like a soft delete. Okay, so in hard delete, basically the record will be permanently deleted from the table. But in soft delete, it will be marked with some flag, right? Like -1 or something. So this is same like that. In merge style, the physical action will happen. That means the record will physically merge. But in link style, all things happens on the reference on virtual basis. Okay. So this we don't use in the real project. This time, this thing we can use just for doing some POC. If you want to do some R&D, if you want to do kind of some POC, then there you can just use, so that the record will not actually match and merge. So you can avoid kind of unmerging and all again and again. So in that case you can use, but in all the project we always use this merge style, because in project configuration and project deployment and live project, only this option will be used. So we always use this option. But the link style, just you remember, this is a kind of virtual option. Okay. And here we have a lookup indicator. So what this lookup indicator is saying, if we enable this lookup indicator option, then the Informatica data director displays drop down list of the lookup values. Okay, so if we enable this lookup indicator, then what will happen? We will see in entity 360 and provisioning that suppose you want to select the state or country. Okay, so whatever state or country detail will be available in the lookup, it will show in drop down. If you are not enabling this, then we have to search it. We have to click on the query, and from the query we have to search it. So this is the difference we have. This we will see in the provisioning. So these are the details we have of the base subject, means these are theory details. So I will take a pause. If you guys have any question, please ask.
So Abhishek, just one question. You mentioned, right, parallel load. So it is any partition concept is introduced.
So
Partitioning.
see, this partition concept, like in Power Center, in other tool, that partition things we can handle in our kind of session level or in our mapping level by ourselves, right? But this kind of things is not available here. So if you want to create partitioning and all, and if you want to do parallel processing with our own code design, that we cannot do. So what we can do, just we can increase here the number of threads. So in backend, it will create the partition or multiple thread, and it will processing will be faster. So the concept is same like partition. Means if you are trying to understand this concept, like it's working same like partitions, like we create a partition on table or on ETL job, and it do process the records in parallel, right? So this also kind of concept is same.
Okay.
But partitioning we cannot do, and we cannot control for in MDM from the front end side. We don't have any control. So we can only give here the number of parallel processing so that it can create the parallel threads in the backend. And how it is doing in backend, we don't know. Like it is creating partitions, or it is processing through some algorithm that we don't know and that we cannot control. So here only we can give the instruction that in place of using one thread, please use the 2 or 3 threads so that our processing can be faster. So that thing we can specify.
And another question, the match flag audit table you explained. So basically, was my understanding, it can be decrease the performance if we check, right, audit table.
Yeah, see, whatever options here we have now, especially these check options. So all I think this enable state management is a standard we always use. But apart from that, whatever option if you are checking, this all is going to take the extra resources. This all is going to impact the performance.
Yes,
so that's
yes.
why in a standard, in general, we don't enable it. That's why you can see this is a standard setting where it has not been enabled. But yes, if we need some have some requirement where we have to enable, then we can take this, we can enable it, and we can manage. We will make sure that our performance will be impacted. So if you are ready with that, then we can go with that option. Otherwise, this all option will going to impact the performance.
Okay. And another question you explained about on batch log wait, right, interval. Period. So it's after it's completed the 6 minutes, it will be unlock and it will go to next step, right?
Now, what will happen? Batch lock wait interval. So suppose any batch is running on this employee table, load batch or some external batch or anything which is using the employee table. Okay. So that batch job can maximum run up to 6 minutes as per this configuration. After 6 minutes, it will terminate, and automatically the other jobs, if that job is not dependent on this, that can trigger.
Okay.
Yeah. So this thing we assign in our ETL job also, right? For ETL job, we can assign this means batch lock wait time interval, like how long it can run. So these all things we have in other ETLs and IDQ tool also. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Abhishek.
Yeah. Thank you. So we went through with this base subject theoretical part, especially the properties, and I will give some documents for this so that you guys can go through with that. And now the important thing, like let's open any base subject. Here we can go to columns, and in columns here you can see, if you are clicking on these, show system columns. Okay. So here basically system column, only one column is showing, that is row ID object, and row ID object we know. Okay. Now if you are enabling these, then it will show all the system columns. right? So these system columns we will learn one by one, so I can explain few of them. So this interaction indicator, okay. So this actually column will be populated once we will learn the active VOS or entity 360. What we will do, we will create some task, okay, and that task will go with the different approval process. So once the task is created, then the task will create some interaction ID. Then Informatica automatically will assign some interaction ID for that task. So that time we can see the value of that. So basically that is only in the entity 360 and provisioning. Hub state indicator already we saw just now. Dirty indicator. So dirty indicator, earlier this had two value. One means the record is tokenized and 0 means the record is not tokenized. Okay. Last row ID system, this is basically a source system. Deleted date, if some record will soft delete, then we will be able to see the date. Because if the record will be hard deleted, then that record will not be available here, right? So we cannot store the kind of deleted date value of that record here, right? But if the some record is soft deleted, then we can see when it was soft deleted. And deleted by, like, who deleted this soft, who marked that record as soft deleted, that user we can see here. Deleted indicator. So here let's see some value. Deleted indicator, here we can actually this value will be populated by MDM itself. So like if this is suppose 1, that means the record is deleted. If this is 0, the record is not deleted. This consolidation indicator already we know it will have 4, 3, 2, 1 and 9 value. Already we saw many times. This is last update date. So basically if some update will happen on the base object, then automatically this will update. So this last update date is not coming from stage, okay? If some update will happen, suppose from data manager, merge manager, or from the entity 360, then automatically this will update. So this last update date is the last update date of the base object. Updated by, we can see created date. This one content metadata, the dirty indicator we'll see later. This creator, we can see who created this record, and this all we already know that these are the business columns. Okay, so these are the theoretical details of these columns. I will give more documentation on this so that you guys can go through with that. Like for every columns, we will have more details. XREF, mostly we have the same kind of tables, XREF and base object. History, we know that from here we can see that history is enabled or not enabled. That's it. Match merge setup, yes, already we completed this, but here we have few theoretical part which we need to cover. So let's try to understand all the things one by one. So here it is saying match columns. It is saying 2. Why it is saying 2? So you can come in match column, and here you can see how many columns you have created. This is match column, okay? This is match column segment. So here whatever number of columns you will create, then accordingly that number will reflect here. Okay, so this is a match column. This is saying match rule set. How many number of match rule set you have created? Okay, so here we can come for that. So here we have one match rule set only. If we have multiple match rule set here, then we can see that multiple, we will see the more numbers here in place of 1. Okay, match rules in active state. So it is basically the number of match rules. So we can come here in the match rule set, and here we can have only one match rule. Okay, that's why it is showing 1. But if you have multiple 4 or 5, then accordingly that match rule will number of match rule will show here, which should be in active state, which is not deleted. This is primary key match rules. So what is primary key match rules? So here we can see in last class we had covered match merge rule till here, but here we have some option. Here we can define the primary key match rule. This option is saying that in place of matching the customer name, address, and all these business details, you can match the primary key details also. Primary key details means we can match the PKSRC object details. Okay, so we are getting data from a stage table in base subject table, and from a stage table we will get the PKSRC object, right, from the respective source. So this option is showing that if you are confident that primary key from the different source could match of the same record, then you can enable this option. So this option we don't enable in real time because we know that primary key from the different source could be different. We are not sure that the primary key, that means PKSRC, will be same from the different source. That's why we always create match rule in this format, which will give the more accurate result. And this we can only go in some specific case where we are confident that the primary key from the different sources are same. Then we can go with this option. Here we have match key distribution. Okay, so in match key distribution, what we have, like suppose as we know that for one row ID object, it will generate lots of tokens, right? Like for one this token, for one this token, like that. So through this option, you can see how many token is starting with, suppose O. Okay, so if you click on this, so it is saying that all tokens which are starting with O, you can see here. Okay, so this is nothing but just we had this strp table, right? This strp table we had, where we had this SSA key and we have the SSA data. So for that means we, for each row ID object, we had some SSA key, that means tokens, right? So that token you can visualize in a different way through this option, through the match key distribution. So here we have these options, like you want to see how many tokens are starting with Y. So these two tokens are starting with Y, one is with ID 1 and one is with 2. And you can see these two tokens are same or not. So here you can see these two tokens are looking same, right? That means it can go for match. This can be a match candidate. Row ID object 1 and row ID object 2 can be a match candidate because tokens are looking same. And if you click on one token here, you can see the value, like what value it actually taking from the source table. So for person name, it is taking this value, and for city, it is taking this. But if you select on this token, so if a person name, it is taking _1. That means here we have defined the fuzzy kind of concept. That's why _1 it is taking, and here city is same. But here we have slight difference, but still the token is same. So that is the beauty of kind of fuzzy concept. Here, although the records will be slightly different, but it can match. So how it can match? It will generate the token, and if token will match, then it will understand that this record is same. And this token can be increased or decreased as per our configuration. Already we have seen that, right? So this is the match key distribution. Here we have one very good conceptual thing that is called merge setting. Okay, so here they always ask in interview, okay, this one, what is immutable row ID object and what is immutable source? Okay, so this actually option is not much useful for project, but yes, this is very useful for conceptual understanding and for interview. So what happened in immutable row ID object? So if you are selecting any source, suppose I'm selecting IDW source as a immutable row ID object, okay, then what will happen? The record which will come from this IDW source, the row ID of the record will always be the winner. Okay, like earlier we saw there was many record like row ID object 1, 2, and 3. So suppose we are getting row ID object 3 from this immutable source IDW. Okay, then if you are merging 3 with 2 or 3 with 1, then in every case row ID object of the IDW will participate in winner. Right, earlier we saw that the row ID object can change as per the kind of matching and merging, but in case of immutable row ID object option, the row ID object will always be it will not change, it will always be same for IDW. So other record can merge with immutable this source, but this record will not merge with other. Okay, that means the data part of this IDW source can update, can change, but the row ID object of this IDW source will always participate in winner. That is the meaning of immutable row ID object. That means row ID object will not immute, it will not change. Okay, if you are selecting some source here. So the meaning of immutable row ID object is this. And the second option here we have distinct. Okay, so what distinct is saying? Okay, so suppose if I am selecting CRM as a distinct. Okay, so CRM, IDW, and these three options is distinct. So what this option is saying, that if you are selecting CRM, IDW, HR1 as a source, then record from these three sources will not match to each other. That means it will behave like these three other distinct kind of records, distinct person. So if you configure these three sources as a distinct here, then you will see that record will not mutually match to each other. Okay, so in some cases we want that no, record from these two sources should never match. So in that case we can enable this option in distinct. So what will happen? The record from these two sources will never match to each other. But yes, record from these two sources can match with this other source. but it will not match each other. Okay, this is the meaning of distinct source. And I hope you understand immutable row ID object. That means the row ID object will never change. Okay. And here we have one option, unmerge child when parent unmerge. So this option you can check if you want that some unmerge is happening on the kind of parent, then the child should also unmerge. So if you are enabling this, then if you are suppose unmerging the parent employee table record, then the corresponding child, that means address record, will also unmerge. So these all options we can use in some specific cases if needed. Otherwise, in general cases, we don't use. It will all be disabled. Okay. So yeah, so now again we can come here in properties. So it is saying primary key match rule. So here we don't have primary key match rules. We have 0. That's why here we have the primary key match rule as a 0. Okay. Now maximum matches for manual consolidation. So from name it is clear, maximum matches for manual consolidation. Okay. That means if you are sending kind of records for manual merge, for manual consolidation, then what could be the maximum number of records you can send? So if this is 1000, that means it is saying maximum 1000 record you can send in a manual merge queue for manual consolidation. Okay, the meaning of this is that if you want that only 100 records should go in the manual merge queue, because I have only the one data steward user, I don't have a bigger team, so I don't want to send other record in the manual merge queue. I want to send remaining record in auto merge queue, so that you can configure as per your choice. But we have to be careful in that case. If you are sending a suspicious record through auto merge, then it can wrongly merge the record, right? So we have to be careful in that case. Here, number of rows per match job batch cycle. Okay. Number of rows per match job batch cycle. So meaning of this is that, like if you are running match job, like then how many record it can take for finding the match in one batch cycle. So it will take 10 record, then it will try to find the match. Again, in the next batch cycle, it will take 10 record accordingly. If you are giving 10 here, it will take 10 record in one shot and in one batch cycle, and it will find the corresponding matches. So this one also we can change as per our choice. Here, you remember this one already we had used. Accept all unmatched rows as a unique. This one already we had used. Okay. So by default, it will be no. Okay. So what is the meaning of this? Accept all unmatched rows. Except all unmatched row. Unmatched row means there is no kind of matching candidate for few of the records. So what will happen if you are enabling this option as a yes? Then what will happen? It will understand that there is the records which don't have any match candidate. Those records are single. Then automatically after running the merge job, that record consolidation indicator will change to 1. Earlier we saw like a few of the records consolidation indicator was not changing to 1. It was still showing 2, right? Why? Because the reason is that the record this option was disabled that time. Okay, on that particular base object it was no, right? So it was no, that's why in that case we had that option. But if we are making this as a yes, okay, then in that case those all record will be automatically kind of marked as consolidation indicator 1 if there is no match candidate. Now those record are kind of unmatched rows which don't have any match records. This one match search strategy. So this one already we saw. If you want to define kind of exact logic, then you have to take here exact. If you want to define fuzzy logic, you have to take fuzzy. That already we saw, right? Here fuzzy population. So in this option will only be enabled in case of fuzzy. So here, if you want to apply kind of fuzzy population for some specific country, then we need to buy additional license from Informatica, and we can integrate that fuzzy population, and accordingly it will show like fuzzy population you want to apply for US or for other country. Okay, so that drop down it will show, and it will help us to find the better match candidate. Okay. So that is not mandatory, but yes, in some cases, if customer is interested to pay additional and they want to find the kind of better match candidate, then they can buy the additional license, they can integrate, and they can in drop down, they can select the appropriate fuzzy population. Then we have match only previous row ID object. What is the meaning of this? So suppose we have a row ID object like that. Suppose we have 1, then we have 2, let's take the example in table itself. Let's go to this base subject table. Okay, so suppose here we have 6, then 3, then 4, then 5, like that. Okay, this is the sequence of data. Okay, so what this option is saying, match only previous row ID object. That means this record can only match with previous. These 3 which can only match with 6. These 4 can only match with 3. These 4 cannot match with 6. These 4 cannot match with this. Okay, so these can only match with previous. 5 can match with this. That is fine. Okay, so if you are enabling this option, so this kind of matching check will happen. So this will be a very kind of strict matching where we can lose our useful match candidate. So we have to be very careful for enabling this option. Okay, so the meaning of this configuration is it will only match with the previous record. Okay, here by the name also it's clear, only match only previous row ID object. Okay, match only once. So if you disable if you disable this option, then this one will also disable. If you enable this, then it will enable. So what it is saying that see, if you are matching the previous one, that means if you are matching this with this, then this matching can happen only once. If you want that this 5 should only match with 4, because we have already configured this option, in that option 5 will only match with 4. Okay, so this is happening only once. It is not happening multiple times. Okay, that's why you can select this option. If you are enabling that, then you can enable this also, so that it will not repeat matching with others. Because if it will repeat matching with others, then it will not allow, this option will not allow, because this option is only for saying you can match with previous. And if it is making only once, then it will be more strict. It will not try for others also. This 5 will not try for 3 match, because you have made once. So it will only try for this and it will stop here. So this is 2 option. Here dynamic match analysis threshold, 0 means disabled. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? Let's hover the mouse here. Dynamic match analysis threshold. This one option is 0 means disabled. That means if we are getting some match candidate, then dynamically we can give some threshold, like that much record can match or not match. If we are giving 0, that means we can match a number of records. Okay, but if you are giving suppose 1000, then only 1000 match can happen in one job. Okay, so this dynamic match analysis threshold we can set as per our requirement. If it's 0, that means a number of matching can happen. Okay, so these are high level property detail of this match. In path already we have seen, this is parent, this is child, and other we can add the grandchild also. Match columns already we have seen, this all the property, right? This is tender and this all. Match rule set also, I think most of this we have already seen. Here you can see the search level. So after generating the token, this will come in picture for finding the match candidate. This also already we have covered. Here enable search by rules. Okay, so suppose here search by rules cannot be enabled if exact match columns are used in the rules of the set. So if we want to enable this option, then we cannot use the exact match columns in the match rule. So if we have only fuzzy match column, in that case we can write some rule and we can filter it. So this is just for filtering. Here we can also apply the filtering. So in filtering here you can write some SQL condition, filtering SQL. Okay, where suppose customer name like that, or customer name in this, or customer ID like that. So basically we apply the filter always here. It's very easy to apply. Here if you are not enabling, you cannot write anything. You cannot write anything. But if you enable, you are able to write. So we have to enable this, then we will be able to apply the filter condition here. Okay, so if required, you want to filter few of the records, that these few records should only go for this matching, then we can apply the filter option. Apart from that, we have few properties here as well in match merge rule setup. So here this all already we saw. This is a geocode radius except limit adjustment. This is for kind of geo related matching and merging. So suppose there is a real estate company which has geographical data in kind of latitude and longitude and all. So in that case, we can configure this value for the kind of matching and merging. In the customer master, product master, and this all, we don't need to pass any value. By default, it will be 0. Yeah, here we have some important column properties. This is saying match properties. Okay, so column type, if you are selecting here, this will say column type, is it this column type as exact or this column type as a fuzzy? Okay, so this column type it is showing exact, this column type it is showing fuzzy. Okay, this match subtype. So match subtype here, in case of exact, we can enable this match subtype. So what will happen? We can apply some filter, and accordingly that the subtype will be taken care for this particular CT. So this option is only enabled for exact. This will not be enabled for fuzzy. If you apply fuzzy, so these are disabled. That means for CT, we can filter few of the records, especially for the CT, on the basis of this match subtype. Here we have non-equal matching. So this one again is for exact match. For fuzzy match, this is disabled. So non-equal matching, that means suppose there are few records which are coming repeatedly. Suppose there is a XYZ and XYG1 something you are getting, and if that record is not matching with the help of match rule and all, then here we can enable this property. Then what will happen? In this case, non-equal matching can happen. If few records are not matching, then the probability of matching will be more of those non-equal records which are slightly different. And this is very important, null matching null. So by default, this will be disabled. So if we are getting null and null from two table, so by default it will understand that these two are the two record. It will not match. But if you allow here null matches null, then in that case null and null, if you are getting from multiple source, it can understand that this is the same record and it can match. Okay, this option null matches not null. So suppose we have a null value from one source, and from other source we are getting blank or something value. Okay, then what we can do, we can enable this option so that null value and blank value can match. We suppose we know, we are confident that these two are the same value, there is no difference. Then in that case we can take this option and we can enable this option. Okay, so these three are the different options based on the null data. Then this segment matching. So this segment matching is basically comes for the fuzzy match. So this segment matching only will be enabled if we will apply some filter here. Okay, so if you apply some filter here, then this segment matching will come in picture, and it will say like, do you want to apply this segment matching or filter on all the data, or you want to apply this segment matching or filter on the specific data. Okay, so this is again the part of filtering the data. If you will apply filter here, then there will get option to apply that filter on the particular segment of data. Or we want to apply that filter on all the segment or on the few segment. So these are the other theoretical parts we had here on this match merge. Validation already we had covered. Then message trigger, I will take a separate class for this message setup. Relationship already we have seen. A staging table already we have seen. And a staging table kind of settings and details already we have seen. Here we'll have a audit trail and delta detection and all. External match, here we have one option in external match. So in if you go in backend, here we have two tables, that is called EMI and EMO. Okay, so this is external match input and this is external match output. So what happens sometime for doing POC, this we don't use in actual project implementation, but this we use for analysis and POC. So what we do, suppose we are getting some data from some source in some flat file or in some other format. That data is not in the table format. Okay, so what we can do, we can match that data with the help of this external option. So if we connect that flat file, if we integrate that flat file, and if we dump the data of that flat file within this EMI table, this is basically input table, then that data can match and it can give some result in the EMO table. Okay, so this data we are not getting from landing a stage or base subject. This is a external data which we are passing here, and we are trying to find some match candidate within the data. So this option we can use in that case. So in general project we don't use, but in a special case you can use this EMI and EMO option just for external matching to analyze the data and doing the kind of POC. Okay, so this will come in picture that time. So we can assign number of columns which will come from external source. Here we can add all those columns, okay? And after adding the columns, you can import the data in this table. Then you can do the kind of match analysis. Then that match candidate will show here. Na? Then we'll be able to decide some, we'll be able to conclude some analysis how this is behaving or not behaving. So this is for external match. And here we have custom index setup. So in some cases, if you want to create a few kind of custom index for few of the columns, so that we can do. So as we know that we can create index after combining multiple columns, or we can create index on the one-to-one column, same like in SQL, right? So here also we can do, we can create a few index by ourselves. If you want to add few index, so it will be created here. But we don't follow that because MDM always create and drops indexes whenever required in the backend. So for all the standard process, MDM by default, it will create the index in backend and it will drop whenever required. So that's why we don't go for this option in the actual project. But yes, here we have the option. If you want, you can create the user-defined indexes and that will be applied in the backend. So these are the different options we had on this. So I think we covered all the base subject properties and match all the things. So I want to take pause here. If you guys have any question, you can ask.
I have few general questions, Abhishek, not related to this.
Yeah, sis, please go ahead.
Yeah, so regarding the match rule, we define it based on the base object. So is there any way we can define generic match rule and we can apply on different base object tables?
No, that is not possible because you can see that option, this match merge setup option is only coming under this, okay? So we cannot create this match merge setup outside of any table. That means if we are coming this table, then within that we have this option. Yes, through the path you can of course combine the other table columns as well. If you have defined a child and grandchild, you can take the other table columns as well. But if we want to create a generic match rule which can be used in the other tables as well, that is not possible here. Like in Informatica, we create maplet, right? So that maplet we can use in the other mapping as well. Or in simple term, we create a function which that function can be called at multiple places. So that option we don't have here. We cannot create a match rule which can be used by other kind of base subject. That we can do.
Okay, and suppose we have same data, okay,
Yeah.
and we define same strategy in match rule, and everything which is doing that internally is same.
Hmm.
So and we are running same job again, so it will generate same tokens and match pair every time, or it will change randomly like that?
Yeah, if we are not changing the data and if we are not changing the tokens strategy to generate more or less token, if that is same, then in that case the number of token will always be same if you are running multiple time also, right? So if we are not changing the configuration, if the token is same and if we are not changing that match rule also, then the match candidate will always be same.
Okay.
But yes, if we are changing any configuration, this search level or tokens level configuration, what we did earlier, of course, it can impact the match candidate. But if you
Okay.
are not changing, then running multiple time, it will not impact our kind of match candidate. If you are not changing anything.
Okay. And one more question, like for related to packages. So packages is same like views.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
And we have two types of package: put package and display package.
Right.
Display is for viewing purpose.
Uh,
But in one of the class you mentioned like put package we can update
yeah,
data also.
right. Right. So here
So
you can see.
internally it
Correct.
will update in how means views cannot update in the main table in
Yeah,
if we
correct,
see that
correct.
on SQL level.
Yeah, so what actually happening here? So that's why from this package we are not able to update. Here you see here we have created put package, right? Here if you see here we have put package, okay? So this is a view, put view, and here we can see the data, but from here we cannot update anything, okay? So what they have done, they have integrated that view with some application. These all are the separate application which has been integrated, okay? So they have integrated that view with the data manager application. And if you have integrated that view with the data manager application, then you will be able to update. Otherwise, if you are not integrating that package with the data manager or merge manager, you will not be able to update. Okay. So if you are integrating here, then here you will get that option. They will allow, means they have done some kind of coding in backend, so that by this way we can update the record with the help of that package. But using that package, you cannot directly change. Okay, because that is a view, as you are clearly saying, from view in SQL you cannot update, right? That is true. Same, I'm also agree on that. But if view you are integrating with some web application, and in that web application, if you are configuring in such a way that you can send the kind of put request or get request through some API, then that is possible. We can do that. So this package now I will reuse in other classes in Java API also. In Java API, I will show you how I can update the record using this put package. So we are directly not updating through this package. We are updating through third-party application. Like here, third party, we have data manager. Then in third party, there we will have the Java API. No, so by that way, so what is actually happening while updating now? If we are creating here additional record or updating, so in backend it is triggering the what we say, put call and get call. So for searching the record, it is triggering the get call, get Java API call, and if you are updating, it is triggering the put call, put Java API call in the backend, and accordingly that is updating. So here for all the actions, some Java API is triggering. Okay. So that all the actions are happening. So that Java API, few of the Java API we will see in the Java API class, which are available in the Informatica MDM.
Okay, thanks for clarification.
Yeah, thanks guys. Let me stop the recording for today.